back to another exciting video of Top Movie Recap. Today's review is about a 2014 Australian science fiction action thriller film called Predestination. The film is based on four characters: Jane, John, the barkeep, an agent of an organization called the Temporal Bureau, and the Fizzle Bomber. While the simpler part of the film explains that Jane and John are the same person, but in reality, all four of them are the same person. Yep, so you must keep that in mind as you proceed further. The film story starts with an agent of the organization known as the Temporal Bureau who is trying to disable a time bomb. But at the last minute, the person who planted the explosive engages in a fight with him, and the agent finally manages to defuse the bomb before it blows up in his face and burning him severely. Then another man pushes a case towards him and the burning man is desperately reaching for it. He then holds the violin case, puts in some numbers on the side locker, and disappears from the scene. Confused me too. Just wait. Actually, in this scene itself, John, the burning man, the barkeep who pushes the case towards him, and the bomber exists, a total of 3 people, all the same. How can that happen if they are the same? Well, they all come from different points of time, the future and the past. So before we proceed further, let me explain the organization Temporal Bureau. It has been described as an organization that has a complete history of deadly future and past crimes, and its team comprises of 11 agents who are tasked to go backward and forward in time to make alterations that stop them from happening. This task of time traveling also has some side effects including dementia, increasing paranoia, etc. John is dedicated to his job and is on the lookout for the Fizzle Bomber, who has carried out various bombings across several years and killed many innocent people. Now returning to the future in 1992, the agent awakens to find that he has undergone facial surgery to save his life. Doctors grafted on new skin and they tried to reconstruct the agent's face and throat as they were badly damaged. It is revealed during this time that the agent actually works for a mysterious organization which is known as the Temporal Bureau. This organization sends temporal agents through time so that they can prevent major crimes that would cost the lives of thousands of people, and that the Fizzle Bomber is the only criminal to elude them, and he is also responsible for killing 11,000 people in New York on March 1975. Once the agent is healed, he is assigned a final mission, and he accepts the mission, uses his coordinate transformer field kit to travel back in time to 1970, and starts work as a bartender in New York. The bartender seemingly waits for a particular customer who he starts chatting with. This customer is referred to as the unmarried mother since he writes many confession magazines, all of them presumably from the point of view of an unmarried mother. The unmarried mother and bartender start talking, and the unmarried mother wagers a bottle of whiskey if his story is enough to shock or surprise the bartender. The bartender agrees, and then the unmarried mother tells him of his past. The unmarried mother explains to him that he was originally a girl, and then he was taken into an orphanage on September 13, 1945, when she was left at the orphanage doorstep. She was named Jane by one of the workers at the orphanage. The unmarried mother recalls events in his life when he was a girl, saying that he envied children with parents and felt he was different somehow. He also tells that he was quite gifted because he was very good in all scientific fields and was physically strong so that he can able to fight boys. The unmarried mother also tells that she wanted to join the Space Corps to help and serve as astronauts in space because she wanted to go to outer space herself and enlisted. He has also excelled in all the tests set for her by the Space Corps, but she was disqualified when doctors found a medical anomaly during her physical. They discovered that Jane has an intersex condition where she has 2 sets of sex organs, male and female. The doctors do not tell Jane about this condition, so she tries to move on with her life. After that, Jane goes to night classes in Cleveland to work on her conduct and charm, but accidentally stumbles into a stranger on her way home on April 3, 1963. The two then start talking and soon start a relationship together. The unmarried mother tells that the two also fell in love and that she believed that she had met the only person who she truly cared about. But eventually the stranger left Jane without any intimation and never came back. After that, Jane is approached by Mr. Robertson, thought to be one of the recruiting officers at the Space Corps. He actually works for a different organization that could use someone with her intelligence and physical abilities, and he offers her a chance to join his organization. Jane is about to accept his proposition, but she reveals that she is pregnant when she was with the stranger. Jane eventually gives birth to a baby girl, and C-section is required to successfully remove the baby. One of the doctors who performed the operation then tells Jane that during the operation they had removed her uterus and ovaries and they surgically reconstructed Jane into a man. After that, Jane's child is kidnapped, and he is completely reconstructed into a man with further operations. The unmarried mother explains that as life went on, he became a writer and started writing confession stories under the pen name The Unmarried Mother. The unmarried mother concludes the story and asks if he has earned the bottle of liquor. The bartender almost gives him the bottle, but quickly reveals that he knows the unmarried mother's new male name, which is John, and other details in Jane's life. John eventually follows the bartender into a secure basement underneath the bar. The bartender tells John that he actually works for Mr. Robertson, and that the organization Mr. Robertson was referring to was the Temporal Bureau. The bartender then offers John the chance to kill the man who ruined his life with no repercussions as long as he agrees to be recruited into the Temporal Bureau afterward. John accepts and they travel back in time to April 3, 1963, in Cleveland, Ohio. The bartender arms John with a gun to confront the man who seduced, impregnated, and abandoned Jane, telling him exactly where and when to find him. John is directed to Cleveland College, but when he gets there, he accidentally meets Jane, his younger female self, while the bartender temporal agent looks on from a distance and eventually uses his time machine to travel into the future. The agent ends up in the exact same building in New York at the beginning of the film, only he arrives a few minutes earlier than his former self to stop the Fizzle Bomber. He spots the Fizzle Bomber and fights him, but is incapacitated in the ensuing fight. He then wakes to the sound of an explosion and gunfire and realizes that his former self, from the beginning of the movie, has been injured and he wasn't able to stop the bomber. He is revealed to be the man who helped his former self reach his time machine in order to get back to the Temporal Bureau in 1992. The temporal agent uses his time machine to travel back to March 1964, where he meets with Robertson. The agent managed to grab some evidence from the bomb used by the Fizzle Bomber and hands it over to Robertson. It is shown that Robertson and the agent are actually having their conversation in the hospital ward where Jane's child is born. The temporal agent / bartender then kidnaps the child and takes the baby girl back in time to the same orphanage that Jane grew up in 1945. The temporal agent soon returns to 1963 to retrieve John and reveals to him his mission and why he set John and Jane together. The temporal agent explains that he, John, Jane, and the child are all in the same person that exists through a predestined time paradox. He tells John that he needed John to meet with Jane in order for her to become pregnant and give birth to a child who would eventually grow up to be them. If the temporal agent had not kidnapped the child and transported her back to 1945, or if he had not set up John and Jane, none of them would exist. John states that he doesn't want to leave Jane, but the temporal agent insists it has to be. The temporal agent takes the unmarried mother John to the Temporal Bureau in 1985 to ensure his own existence so that he could prevent the crimes to come, and is decommissioned. Robertson also gives the temporal agent a file containing new leads recovered from the evidence he gave Robertson. The temporal agent / bartender / future John then returns to his own timeline to live out a normal life as best he can in January 1975 New York. He then deactivates his time machine, but it encounters an error and does not deactivate properly. The agent / future John soon deduces where to find the bomber using the leads given to him by Robertson. The agent eventually finds the bomber in a laundromat store. To the agent's shock, he sees that the Fizzle Bomber is actually him in the future. The Fizzle Bomber states that he saved more lives than he has taken as a result of his actions, and that Robertson is setting them up. The Fizzle Bomber, seemingly insane, says that if the agent kills him, the agent will become him, as it is a repetitive cycle. But if the agent loves him again when he was Jane and John, then they can break the cycle. Disgusted with his future self, the agent decides to kill the Fizzle Bomber. The movie ends with the agent overlooking the time machine, stating that he knows for sure that Jane, John, and himself were the best things that had happened to him in his life, and that he misses his past selves dreadfully. We hope you enjoyed our today's video. If you did like this video, smash that like button and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with the latest and interesting videos.